Om Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. So now we come to the second part of the Gospel of Holy Mother. So this has been recorded by Yogindra Mohini Biswas. She was popularly known as Yogin Ma or Jogin Ma in Bengali. And she was a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna himself and a lifelong companion of Holy Mother. So she used to live, she being a widow, she spent all her life in the company of Holy Mother, especially when Sri Ramakrishna passed away. She was very helpful, and wherever Holy Mother went on a pilgrimage or any other place, she used to accompany. And she was a very, very devoted uh, aspirant, also a lifelong companion of the Holy Mother, as well as a disciple of Thakur himself. So she is writing her reminiscences. And this was, she met Holy Mother when Sri Ramakrishna was alive, when he was living, and he was in Dakshineshwar. Yogindra Mohini Biswas or Yogin Ma met Holy Mother for the first time. So she writes, let us see what she says. Some days after I had been introduced to Sri Ramakrishna, I paid a visit to Dakshineshwar. Learning that being in a hurry, I had not taken my meal, the master said, "Oh, you have not taken your food. Go to the Nahabat and take rice and curry." So that was the standard meal, standard Bengali meal, rice and curry. And Nahabat is a place which is not very far from Sri Ramakrishna's room in Dakshineshwar. And that is the place, on the top of the Nahabat was a place where in the olden days people used to play some instruments, especially early in the morning and evening when the conch and other things, Shehnai and all these instruments used to be played, just to indicate that it is time for the morning vespers, morning arti, evening arti and all. So Nahabat was predominantly used, mainly used for that. But because there was no other room, Holy Mother used to stay below on the ground floor. And Holy Mother, so Thakur's mother, as long as she was alive, she used to stay on the first floor of that Nahabat. And the rooms are really small. The rooms of that Nahabat, it's meant for one or two people to sit and play music. It was not meant for as a living room, but that is the room where Sri Ma Sarda Devi stayed most of her life till Sri Ramakrishna was alive and was in Dakshineshwar. After he shifted to Shampakur and Kashipur, she also went there. But till Sri Ramakrishna, till she was with Sri Ramakrishna in Dakshineshwar, she used to stay in this Nahabat, which was very uncomfortable in the sense there was hardly any space to sleep. And in that space, she had her kitchen, living room, everything was in one room. And it was a hexagonal type of structure, very odd. And you had to keep things all over the place. Some things were hanging from the roof. So, because many things could not be kept on the floor, then where will she sleep? So, her bedding and the small pillow or whatever she had, the few belongings she had, maybe a box of clothes, everything was in a corner. And she used to live in that. The maximum distance, I think, was 8 feet. It's such a small area. You can just imagine a hexagon of that size, hexagonal room. It had 6 sides and two very big doors, the front door and the side. There were, I think, 4 doors on the side, because it's like an open thing. You had to close the door if you wanted any privacy. But most of the day, Holy Mother used to be very busy working or cooking in that small place, which was her living room, which was her bedroom, which was everything, storeroom, or you may say kitchen. So one room for all the purposes. And on the top floor, there was exactly a room of the same size where Thakur's mother So she had to serve not only Sri Ramakrishna and all the devotees who used to come. So all the cooking, all the young disciples, Sri Ramakrishna used to simply tell Holy Mother to cook something for these young uh, devotees. And she, without grumbling, she used to cook whatever be the strain on her. And in spite of that, do 1 lakh japa, sitting in that Nahabat. Early, she used to get up early in the morning. And in those days, it was so difficult. They had to go for ablutions to the Ganga, take bath, everything outside. There was no question of attached bathroom or anything. There was no bathroom. So can you imagine living in a small room? We complain of not having big houses or big rooms for ourselves. See the lack of privacy she had. She had to finish everything in the morning before even the others got up. It was so difficult. And then go to the ghat, then have her bath, and then come and then do her japa. Sometimes she used to say that she used to get up at before 3 o'clock in the morning, because the sunrise was at about 5 or something, and before sunrise she had to finish everything. So that was the condition, but still she used to cook rice, curry, and a simple meal, whatever was available. uh, Whatever prasad came from the temple, whatever provisions were given to her, she used to cook. So the and Yoginma, when she first came, Thakur used to first inquire, have you had food? Did you have food? If you did not have food, you were always welcome to go. No matter how many people came, all we would go, and he would simply send them to Nahabat, and Holy Mother had to feed all of them. So there at the Nahabat, Yogin Mas saw Holy Mother for the first time. Rama's mother, some devotee Rama, his mother and others had been there once or twice before, and that is what she is saying. At the Nahabat, they told the mother that I had not taken my meal. So they went, and she was hesitating. How can I go and just announce that I have not taken anything? We do not know. When we go to some place, they may or may not have enough food to serve. So at the Nahabat, these people, the others, Rama's mother and others who had been there before, they knew the tradition that one could always go to the mother and tell them we have not taken anything. And even if there was no food, she would cook. The mother promptly served me rice, curry, luchi, and whatever else she had in stock. Of course, she knew somebody or the other would come. So she always cooked a little more, and uh, at very short notice, she could feed. Even at this, my first meeting with the Holy Mother, I became quite intimate with her. So she was so motherly that even if Yoginma, this was Yoginma's first visit, she says she felt so comfortable, and uh, she had such a motherly uh, attitude. Of course, she was the Holy Mother, so naturally her attitude was to uh, feel everybody that he or she was her child. So the next time I went to Dakshineshwar, she says, I found that the mother was going on a trip to Kamarpukur that very day to attend Ramlal Dada's marriage. Ramlal Dada was the son of Sri Ramakrishna's brother. So she felt very sad at the thought that I would not see her for many days. So she was thinking that if she came to Calcutta, she would visit Dakshineshwar every day and meet Holy Mother. But she felt sad that very day Holy Mother was leaving for Kamarpukur, because the marriage was, Ramlal Dada's marriage was arranged in Kamarpukur. The mother came to salute the master before leaving on the journey. The master came to the northern veranda when the mother took the dust off his feet. The master said, move cautiously, see that you don't leave behind any of your belongings in the boat or railway compartment. Now, Thakur used to be so careless about his own, careless in the sense non-attached to everything around him. But whatever little belongings he had, he was so careful not to lose anything. And he insisted, he used to train Latu Maharaj and tell him that even a towel or a small insignificant thing, when you go somewhere, make a list of what things you have taken there and see that you are bringing those things. It's not a question of losing or carrying or being attached. It was a question of discipline. So she was very particular, and you see the practical advice she says: move cautiously, because they had to go either by boat and then maybe take a railway up to Tarkeshwar, then start walking. So whether they go in a boat to cross the Ganges, the Ganga river, and then take a railway coach or a train, whatever it is, there was a chance that the belongings, whatever little clothes she was carrying, that would be left behind. So Sri Ramakrishna said, don't leave anything behind of your belongings. Then I had the desire to see them together, and that day my desire was fulfilled, because though Holy Mother lived so close, Nahabat was hardly a few meters away from Sri Ramakrishna's room. They sometimes did not meet each other for days together. That was the kind of uh, relationship they had, not because they avoided seeing each other. Sri Ramakrishna was so busy with his spiritual practices. Holy Mother was so busy cooking and serving him, and very often others would take the food to Sri Ramakrishna. So she did not even get that opportunity to serve him, though she was his uh, wife. So she never saw, Yogin Ma, though she had visited, she could never see Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother together. Holy Mother would be busy throughout her day. She was totally detached, though they were household. She was householder in that sense. She was married, but you see the independence with which both of them lived. They hardly got time to communicate. Sometimes she used to Sri Ramakrishna used to sing kirtan, and they come out, and it was visible from the Nahabat, but there was a screen for privacy, and she used to very often uh, see through the hole in the curtain. There used to be a curtain, and she used to see through the hole in the curtain and try to see what Sri Ramakrishna and the whole group is doing there. That kind of distance, in the sense, that kind of privacy she had to maintain, because that was the tradition in those days. And Sri Ramakrishna, naturally, they were so busy with their own spiritual pursuits that they did not mind that. She also did not mind, and he was also so busy with his own spiritual life, and also advising people who used to come in flocks there to Dakshineshwar. He was also very busy distributing his spiritual treasures to all people. And she was also busy serving the master and serving all the other devotees, cooking their food, which for her was the highest worship. But in spite of all that, you see, Sri Ramakrishna was so particular that Holy Mother did not leave anything behind, and all the practical advice, how to clean the wick of the lamp, everything, how to wash utensils, how to waste the less water, everything, every small detail of the household work. Sri Ramakrishna was such an adept, such a perfectionist, that all the things which he did, he wanted it to be done perfectly. Suppose his sevaks took some lota and some towel and some other very few belongings, whatever he had. It was their duty, or maybe some knife for cutting something. So he would be very particular that they never forgot anything behind, so that others will not find it inconvenient to bring it back or return those things. Said you have to be very particular. So, but anyway, Yogin Ma never had an opportunity to see them together. So, because Holy Mother was living, and you see, Sri Ramakrishna, uh, though it was his brother's son's marriage, even he did not attend that. Nowadays, people think there are so many social obligations. Others will feel bad if we don't attend marriage. But Sri Ramakrishna, though he lived in the household, he was so detached. Mother, perhaps because somebody had to represent, and Sri Ramakrishna was so free and so detached that he did not even think that it was necessary for him to attend a function as important as a marriage of his own brother's son. Anyway, Holy Mother was the representative. She went and she took leave of the master, which Yogin Ma wanted to see, oh, how do they interact with each other. So the amount of respect she gave to the master, and the master also reciprocated. So both of them uh, lived with lived, but at the same time respected each other, respected freedom, each other's freedom. So the mother, of course, left by boat. That was the easiest way. As long as it could be seen, I stood gazing at the boat. So Yoginma was feeling sad that I have come to see her and she is leaving now, and I'll be missing her company at least for a few days till she comes back. Because those days, once you go there, it is not so easy to come back. People could not travel. Travel was so difficult. It's like going to another country. So with great difficulty, people traveled. Then she went when the boat was out of sight. She was That was the habit. Whenever people left, people used to just see that they are out of sight, and then they used to return. They used to go to the Ganga Ghat and see the people who are departing, see them off, and then wait till the boat goes out of sight, and then only they would return. So she went to the spot in the Nahabat where Holy Mother used to meditate. She knew that that place is so holy, and somehow she felt that that day the absence of Holy Mother was too much for her. So she started weeping bitterly, as if she has gone. She had just gone on a tour. She was very much alive, not that she had taken samadhi, but she felt she was so became so attached to Holy Mother, and she enjoyed her satsang so much that she wept bitterly. And she sat for meditation facing south on the western veranda. So while passing by the Nahabat, the master heard me sobbing and sent for me. So Sri Krishna saw that this young woman is crying because of some reason. So he said, call Yogin, let me see what is wrong with her. When I went to his room, he said, have you been deeply grieved at her departure, means Holy Mother's departure? Then to console me, as it were, he began to recount the spiritual disciplines he had practiced at Dakshineshwar. He concluded saying, don't divulge these to anyone. I, a mere housewife, was shy, but on that day I sat quite close. Of course, I think when Yoginma met, she was not yet widowed. So she was married, and she was shy because a housewife, suddenly Sri Ramakrishna comes and tells all his spiritual disciplines which he had practiced, which are normally not disclosed to unknown people. She was practically unknown. She had just started coming, and though she was close to Holy Mother, she did not expect Sri Ramakrishna to be so open and tell things about himself without being asked. And she says, I was very shy, but on that day I sat quite close to the master and talked with him. She felt a strange kind of fearlessness. Normally, people would hesitate to sit near him. That was the tradition in those days. You could not mix with men, especially housewives. They would not be meeting men, not strange men. I mean, other than their own husband, they would not be free with other men. But here, she found it was not very difficult because Sri Ramakrishna was like a child, and people would feel free. Even men, women, or children, everybody thought that Sri Ramakrishna is their own. And that day, Thakur blessed her. He knew the spiritual potential of Yogin Ma. So that's why he talked about all the spiritual experiences and practices he did, just to make her forget that, you see, the goal of spiritual life. Why should you sob? Why should you cry because your Holy Mother is gone? That you instead focus on the spiritual. So to divert her attention, uh, he talked to her and told her all about the different sadhanas, which he never divulged to anyone. And she was very happy. And the mother returned to Dakshineshwar about a year and a half. So you can see it was almost 1 year she stayed in Kamarpukur and Jairambati. Maybe she went to her mother's home as well. And she came after 1.5 years. So Sri Ramakrishna was living alone. The master had written to her. Sri Ramakrishna had written to her and asked her to come because he was having difficulties regarding my food, because she knew how sensitive his stomach was. Because of intense sadhana, he had lost his power of digestion and he could not eat anything and everything. Simple boiled food was what he wanted, and people could not cook. So, highly spicy food and other things, he was missing the diet which Ma Sharda would, Sri Ma Sharda Devi would cook. And he said, I am having difficulties regarding my food, so you please come. So after 1.5 years, when she got the message, she was also detached. You see, that's the wonderful life they lived, whether they were together or whether they were mm, at such a distance to each other. Of course, Kamarpukur was quite far in those days compared to what it is today. Today, you can just travel in 1 hour, but in those days, it was a very big journey. So people would not go very often. So even if she was there for 1.5 years, she was continuing with a strange kind of detachment. That was her life. Wherever she was not attached to anything, nor was she detached to anything. She was just taking things as they come, having no choice what should happen and what should not happen. If she is asked to go, she'll go. If she is asked to come, she immediately came. When the master said, you please come, she came, dropping everything. Not that she said, no, I will stay a few days more. So practically, she was as if without her own choice. Whatever her master said, on her return, the master said to her, that girl with big, beautiful eyes loves you dearly. He used to call Yogin Ma. He did not call her by name. He said that girl with big, beautiful eyes. Yogin Ma had a wonderful eyes. And Thakur once said, you have the eyes of a yogi. So she loves you dearly. The day you left, she wept bitterly, sitting in the Nabat. The mother said, yes, her name is Yogin. Though Sri Ramakrishna knew, he did not refer to her by her name. But anyway, Holy Mother tells, yes, I know, she is Yogin. Whenever I went to Dakshineshwar, the mother used to tell me all that had happened. She sought my advice. She was so simple that sometimes she used to ask Yogin, and I used to braid her hair. She used to braid Holy Mother's hair. She liked so much the way I braided it that she would not undo it at the time of bathing, even after 3 or 4 days. So whenever Yoginma got an opportunity to braid the hair, Holy Mother liked it, and she did not unbraid it, even if she had to take a bath. She used to take bath because she knew that till Yoginma comes, nobody will be able to braid her hair the way she did. So no, Yogin braided my hair. If I shall unbraid it on the day she comes next, then she can do it again. So whenever she knew that Yoginma is coming, she used to take the bath by unbraiding her hair. So much she liked the service of this young Yoginma. I would take Bilwa leaves. I used to visit the master every 7 or 8 days because she was living in the household. She could not come daily. She used to come now and then whenever she got an opportunity. And every week, perhaps once or twice, she used to come. I would take Bilwa leaves from Dakshineshwar for worshipping Shiva at home. Perhaps her Ishta Devata was Shiva. So she used to take Bilwa leaves because there was a big Bilwa tree in Dakshineshwar. I think there were many trees. So she used to take those leaves and she used to worship Shiva with those leaves, even when they got dried up, because perhaps she did not have Bilwa leaves there. One day the mother asked, Yogin, do you worship using dried Bilwa leaves? Yoginma said, yes, mother, but how did you know? Because normally the leaves would not stay fresh when she took, and 1 week they would get dried. They would be dried. So with those dried leaves, she used to offer. Mother said, during my meditation, this morning I saw you worshipping with dried bilwa leaves. Normally we give fresh leaves, but if there is no other option, sometimes we have to offer dried bilwa leaves also. But mother could see her. In her meditation, she could clearly see that Yoginma is worshipping with dried bilwa leaves, though she was not near. One day, the mother was preparing rolls of betel leaf in the Nahabat, and I was sitting by her side. I noticed that she prepared some rolls with cardamom and a few others with simple betel and lime. So there were many types of betel leaves, betel leaf preparations. So they used to apply most of the betel leaves. People apply lime, and some betel leaves they put cardamom to give it a nice flavor. But since cardamom was costly, they could not afford. She used to make only a few with whatever cardamom she had, and some were plain betel leaves with lime only. So then when Yoginma noticed that, and she asked, why you are making two types? Why are you making these two types of betel leaves? For whom are those special betel leaves? So she expected that there may be some special people for whom Holy Mother is preparing that way. But the answer she gave was something wonderful. She said, Yogin, these specially spiced bitter rolls are meant for the devotees. By taking good care of them, I have to make them my own. And these, the ones without cardamom, are for the master. He is already my own. So you see how much of motherhood she was demonstrating. Her own husband, she is giving ordinary betel leaves, and she wants the other people who have not become her own, in the sense they are not feeling that mother is our own. So she was very keen that all the people who came, by giving special betel rolls, of course that was not the only thing that would help them, but the love with which she used to treat strangers and even unknown people, that is what stands out in this. So the ones without cardamom are for the master, is already my own. He doesn't need these things to be attracted to me. In the sense, that was an expression of her love, that people, even if they want something gross, some gross special betel leaves, if I give, if that attracts them towards spirituality, not that she wanted to tempt them or give them something special because of any worldly gain, but she knew that even in a gross way, if I attract them, they are lucky, because then they will start getting the subtle benefits of holy company. Then Yogin Ma tells something beautiful. She says Holy Mother had a very good musical voice. One night, she and Lakshmi Didi were singing in a low tone. It was very resonant and reached the ear of the master. Though they were living a little away from each other, Sri Ram Krishna suddenly, because when everything was quiet, even the least singing or talking would reach the ears. The master's ears, Sri Ram Krishna's ears were very, very sensitive. So next day he said, yesterday you were singing, that's very good, very good. So Lakshmi Didi and Holy Mother were singing, and next day he told Holy Mother, he was very happy. Normally women would not sing, but that joy of freedom, as you see birds, they don't sing, they are full of freedom. Birds don't sing because somebody is recording or somebody will appreciate. They sing because they sing out of the joy of freedom. The singing of the birds is most natural, and that is how one should sing. One should sing as if sing out of freedom. That is what Holy Mother is to do. She did not sing as a professional singer. Most of the singers who came, they were professional singers, and they used to sing in front of Thakur. Most of them were, of course, men. Brahmo Samaj and even Swamiji came and sang. But they did not sing in that kind of natural way. Free as a bird and singing whenever you feel like, not out of compulsion. So that kind of singing Sri Ramakrishna appreciated. He said it is very good, because she did not expect that the master would hear, nor did she expect anyone to hear. It was spontaneously coming out of the heart, and she was singing with Lakshmi Didi. During her stay at Dakshineshwar, the mother could not find even a little time for rest. Because you see, Dakshineshwar, as you might have noticed, the first of all, there was hardly any privacy. Everybody makes so much of privacy in this country that we don't like to be disturbed. We don't like to be meet others without appointment. But in India, there is no sense of taking time or fixing an appointment. It is a habit for everybody to just go, whether one is ready, whether one is, it is convenient for the other person to meet. They just don't care. Whenever they feel like, that's the way certain cultures are built up. So there is atithi. Atithi, the word atithi is the word, Sanskrit word for guest. What do you mean by atithi? Atithi means one who comes without tithi, without invitation, or without any fixed appointment. Now, this may sound ridiculous in this country, especially when people simply don't meet without appointment. So in Japan, they are so particular about their own time, and even the parents and the children, they have to take appointment weeks before. And they are not even welcome to stay in the house of their parents, though they may have several rooms. So they have to book a hotel or stay in some lodge or something, and then meet, and a time will be given. So even parents don't meet their children, or children don't meet their parents. That is how the modern system is. But atithi in Sanskrit means you just go, just present yourself, whether you have informed earlier or not. There was no way people could inform. They would come from long distances, and Sri Ramakrishna would just meet them anytime they want, any time of the day, evening, and then send them to Holy Mother, and whether he would not even perhaps inquire whether she has prepared enough food. Oh, you go and have prasad. So the devotees just used to come without any consideration of the inconvenience caused, and Holy Mother did not mind. So she could not get any rest because of this. The devotees who came, she had to make chapatis out of 3 or 3.5 seers of coarse flour. So 3 seers of flour is a huge, you have to make the dough and then make chapatis. It is, and you have to cook, you have to roast them or fry them. If it is luchi, you have to fry them. So how many rolls of betel leaves she had to prepare? I mean, she had to prepare a lot. Betel leaves are, of course, very common in after food. Everybody takes it for digestion. And then she would boil down the milk meant for the master because he was fond of cream. She wanted the master because he could not take other types of food. At least she thought, if I boil the milk, make it, he would be able to take more quantity and get more nutrition. And he was fond of cream. Then soup had to be prepared for him because he could not take solid food and other things. His stomach was very sensitive. So she would prepare soup, she would prepare betel leaves for devotees, prepare chapatis, especially if Naren came. He liked thick chapatis with gram and all those things. So he used to take food at the Nahabat as long as his mother lived. Now that is a wonderful thing. Sri Ramakrishna was so much devoted to his mother that he used to go all the way. See the respect he had for his own mother. Till she was alive, he used to go on the first floor of the Nahabat or wherever it is, wherever the meal was served, he used to eat with his mother. As long as his mother lived in that small room, he could easily eat his food here, but he went there to inquire about her welfare, took the food, and after her death, however, he used to dine in his living room. So the food used to go there. Till then, he used to himself go without giving trouble to anybody. And then on the days the male disciples were not present, the mother would rub the master's body with oil before his bath. So most of the time it was the sevaks who did it, who rubbed oil on the body, because that is how bath is taken. It is a very big ritual to take a bath in Bengal. Even today, you will find people sitting in the sun even before taking a bath. To take a bath means it's like a big ritual, daily ritual, which people do. Nowadays, of course, everybody does it in the bathroom. But in those days, one used to go to the bank of the Ganga. There was no soap as such. The mud of the Ganga itself used to be, first they will apply the body with oil and massage it nicely. Somebody had to do it if one could not do it oneself, and rub the oil. So that's one way of getting the nutrition. So it prevents the skin from drying, and at the same time it would nourish the body also. So that oil bath was very common, and normally it was the male devotees or the male boys, young boys, who used to visit the master, who used to do that, and then used to take a Ganges bath and then come back. One day, and the mother would and that day Holy Mother could not bring food, because she herself had to rub the master's body with oil. The master asked Golap Didi, Golap Ma, one day to bring, she used to call Golap Ma, Yogin Ma, we used to call Golap Ma Didi because she was elder. And she used to bring his meals to his room. From that day, Golap Didi carried the master's meals every day. So even Holy Mother did not insist that I will serve my own husband. Anybody who wanted to do some service, she used to gladly give. She had no attachment or no possessiveness that I should serve the master, though she was he was her husband. So thus the mother was deprived of her only opportunity to see the master daily. Earlier, at least while giving food, she used to go once and have darshan of Sri Krishna, but even that was denied. And she said, if others are getting benefit, why should I come in the way? So her heart was so liberal that if anybody wanted, said, okay, you take. Sri Krishna was upset also, because sometimes she used to send food through strangers. Some unknown devotee would come and say, can I take the food? Because they used to get an opportunity to serve the master. And she thought, if that helps him spiritually, let him take. And that the master did not like. So one day, somebody who requested Holy Mother, that lady was not of a very good character. So Sri Krishna could not eat from her hands. So he said, I'll not touch this food which you have sent. Then mother had to go and tell him, you please eat today, from tomorrow I'll not send. But then he said, promise me that you will not send food through anybody else, anyone, unless they are very devoted. He would not take food from their hands. So because he believed that the person who serves, the vibrations of that person is equally important. And it's not the person who has cooked the food. That is okay. Holy Mother had herself cooked the food, and he would not take the food from anybody's and everybody's hand. And but mother said, I can't promise you. If somebody comes and calls me and says, Mother, can I take the food? I have to oblige. If anybody calls me addresses me as mother, I can't deny him anything he or she asks. So Sri Krishna, though he got a little upset, but he was very pleased that the motherhood of God, or motherhood, the aspect of motherhood was becoming stronger and stronger in Holy Mother day by day. He knew that she would be the mother of all. After his passing away, it was she who would take the spiritual guidance of all the disciples, and the future disciples who had not seen Sri Krishna. They would be blessed by her, and that would be as good as he blessing them. So many of the disciples, even Master Mahashay M, whom we think was so close with the master. So you will not believe, he just wrote the bija on the master's tongue. He did not give him initiation. He did not give him diksha. He did not give them diksha. He did not give him diksha, though he was so close. And he did not understand. He just wrote the bija on his tongue. And later on, after the passing away of the master, one day mother asked him, have you got the mantra? Then he said, no, I don't. Then master appeared in Holy Mother's dream and said, please give mantra to this M. So people very often don't know that though most of these monks, including Swami Yogananda and some others who are known to be the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. They are in fact direct disciples of Holy Mother because they've got the formal initiation from Holy Mother. So that is why Sri Ramakrishna used to train her, because he knew whether Holy Mother gives initiation or whether he gives, it is the same. There's absolutely no difference. Once Swami Sridharanji was mentioning this wonderful incident. Kali Krishna Maharaj, who was also known as Swami Virajanandji, who was the 5th president of our order. After the direct disciples, he was the first president of our mission, the 5th. So he was very sad that though Sri Ramakrishna came into his area many times, he never felt. Many of his relatives, many of his family members would go and visit because he used to come in the neighborhood, and he, maybe because of his young age, he was not interested in spirituality, so he did not visit even once. And later on he regretted, because he said Sri Ramakrishna came to a house which is few houses from our place. Of course, he did not come to his house, but he was in the neighborhood. Many times he has visited, and many of his family members have gone, but he somehow did not feel like going. And later on, when he was initiated, of course, he was initiated by Holy Mother, something was occupying his mind. He said, see, Thakur, maybe I was not lucky. Maybe Thakur did not want to give his grace, shower his grace upon me. Otherwise, how can it happen that everybody from my family has somehow or the other, they have visited, and I did not have the inclination to visit at that time. Now I regret. So can I see, maybe why was it? So he was regretting, and once or twice he mentioned, Mother just kept quiet. But once, even Holy Mother he persistently asked, why I did not get that inclination or opportunity to see Thakur, even though he was alive when I was born. I was very young, no doubt, but why did it happen? Then Holy Mother got a little, not irritated, but she just looked upon him seriously, and suddenly in place of Holy Mother, his own Guru, he saw Sri Ramakrishna standing there. So it happened for a moment, but then all his doubts were cleared. So also, Holy Mother used to, people used to feel the presence of the Master after his passing away, and many of them got spiritual instructions. So the Gulab Didi used to spend long hours in the evening, and Holy Mother did not. Many people will be jealous if they don't get an opportunity to be with the Guru, and Sri Ramakrishna was not only the Guru of Holy Mother, but also her husband. And she, whatever little opportunity she was, at least once in a day to go and serve him food, that also she let go because somebody said, Mother, I want to go and serve. Said, okay, you go. So she was so much detached, so much independent. You see the kind of independent people say, many people say, what is there? Even Holy Mother Thakur was married. They were also householders. But what kind of householders were they? People rarely think. Is it known? Can we imagine a wife not being able to see the husband for days and days together, though she's living nearby? And she's so independent and so not dependent on even one visit per day. She was denied, and she was absolutely okay with that. Not only that, it was her intention that if somebody wants to get the benefit of the satsang of Thakur, why should I deny it? See the kind of independence. This is, though technically, or though we can see that Sri Ramakrishna embraced the householder's life, in the sense he was a householder, though people know him as a monk because he took formal sannyasa from Totapuri, but at the same time he did not renounce his wife. So the incarnation comes to show what is ideal. An ideal householder, an ideal monk, an ideal guru, an ideal mother. So all these roles in our day-to-day life are demonstrated in the life of incarnations. And that is very important. We can't just say Oh, even Thakur was married. So what is wrong in marriage? Oh, even Thakur was a monk. You can't say Thakur was this or that. He came to demonstrate all the ideals. He was a synthesis of all the ideal sects within Hinduism, outside Hinduism, all the religions, all the spiritual essence of the whole world was demonstrated. Not only that, all the relationship as a good son to the mother. Though he took sannyas, he told Totapuri, I would not like anybody I will not wear gerua outside. I mean, he used to wear white dress because he did not want her to give a shock to his mother. He was a sannyasin in spirit. And Holy Mother, if you see, she was a nun in spirit. Because otherwise, who will lead such a life of self-control, such a life of purity, and moreover, the independence with which she lived? Hardly not bothering, and this is highlighted by Yogin Ma. Gulab Didi used to spend long hours because she was a disciple who wanted to get some spiritualities through satsang, and Holy Mother did not need it. So why would she be jealous of Gulab Didi? And then some days she didn't return to the Navat even by 10 o'clock. The mother had to keep an eye on Gulab Didi's food on the veranda of the Navat and was therefore experiencing inconvenience. Now you see, it's not only that she was coming late back to Nahabat. She was supposed to come because otherwise Holy Mother, in those days, you would not simply eat and then allow others to come and eat at their own time. Mother was so loving that she would wait for him. And even if she came late, she never complained. So, but one day the master heard her saying, I mean, Holy Mother there was a limit to her patience also. Every day she would come late, and as if it's her birthright to come late whenever she wants. And Holy Mother, so once, just to discipline her, Holy Mother just said one day she got irritated because the strain was too much for her. Even physically, it is strenuous to wait for somebody when coming so late. Then she said, let this food be eaten by a dog or cat, because in those days it was all open. So you have to be very careful, otherwise a dog or cat would simply sneak in and eat the food which is kept for Golapma. So Golapma's food, she was not, after working so hard, she has to guard her food also. So one day she got angry and I can't look after it anymore. The next day the master said to Gulab Didi, you spend a long time here in the name of asking questions, and that inconveniences her, for she has to keep watch over your food. No, Gulab Didi said. Gulab Didi, even then she was not sensitive to mother's inconvenience. She said, no, she loves me very much and calls me by my first name as if I were her own daughter. Though Gulab Didi could not understand that mother was hurt because she was being prevented from coming to the master, the latter could not understand it. But anyway, mother bore with all these inconveniences. That shows her greatness. So Yogin Ma is pointing out that in spite of the lack of understanding of Gulab Ma and Gulab Didi, mother never complained. One day Gulab Didi said to her, Mother, Manmohan's mother says the master is a man of such great renunciation, and yet the Holy Mother wears earrings and other ornaments. Does it look well? That is typical of householders. They always don't, the tendency of people who are attached to all these gross things is to see the fault in others. Now, without seeing the renunciation of Holy Mother, she is comparing that even she is wearing earrings and other ornaments, and see the master, he is such a simple person. The next morning when I visited Dakshineshwar, I noticed that the mother had only a pair of gold bracelets on her wrist and had taken off all the other ornaments. Surprised at this, I asked, Mother, what's this? The mother replied, Golab said, and all those things. So after persuasion, Sri Ramakrishna was upset because he said, he had very lovingly made all these ornaments, because you remember when she was during her marriage, they had to borrow, they were so poor that Sri Ramakrishna's mother had to borrow some, because normally the bride would be decked with so many ornaments, at least at the time of marriage. So Sharda Devi was very young at those days, 5 years old. So she was fully decked with the beautiful ornaments. And like a small child, she was so attached and she was sleeping with those ornaments. But at night, those people who had lent these ornaments, they had borrowed it because they could not buy these ornaments. They came and Holy Mother's Thakur's mother did not have the heart to remove this ornament. Said this child is so much attached. Today only she has been married, and this ornament she's sleeping with the idea that these are all mine. Now we have to remove it. But Thakur came and said, "Don't worry, I'll do that job." And very slowly, without even waking her up, Thakur very carefully removed. Said it is not ours. It has to be returned. And then she returned all those ornaments. So that day, Sri Ramakrishna had taken a sort of vow that I deprived Lakshmi, she mother is Lakshmi herself, and I removed all those ornaments. So he was feeling so bad. So with whatever little money he had purchased 2 nice bangles for her because she was Sakshat Lakshmi herself. But still, after this criticism, she did not take it serious. I mean, take it she was not hurt by that, but she really removed all her ornaments and always wore just 2 rings. That is also because Sri Ramakrishna had very lovingly made it for her. And then she never put all the ornaments that she had taken off because immediately after this, the master fell ill. So whatever little was there, she uh, removed those ornaments and never wore it in her life again. When the mother first came to Dakshineshwar, she didn't understand much about household problems and she did not experience any trances. Though she devotedly practiced meditation and japa every day, we didn't hear of her going to samadhi. Rather, she even became very frightened and worried at the sight of Master Samadhi. So apparently, this is what Yoginma is writing, that compared to Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother apparently did not have these experiences. So it was perhaps new to her that the master used to go into samadhi. It is an unknown sight. Only avtaras can have this. Otherwise, people say that once you have samadhi, the body does not last for more than 21 days. That is what yoga texts say. But here, Sri Ramakrishna was going into samadhi day and night, which was an unknown phenomena for even for the great sadhakas of those days. And that surprised because Holy Mother had just come at the age of 18 or 17. She got the first opportunity after marriage to come and live with Sri Ramakrishna here. So she was in the initial stages, Yoginma writes, frightened because in the midnight and suddenly he would go into samadhi and for hours together he would not come back to normal consciousness. So for I heard from her lips that during her first visit to Dakshineshwar, the master had asked her to stay with him at night. So, but when she was staying there, she used to get frightened. That's why master used to occupy the larger cot, the mother the smaller cot. But she used to be frightened because of this samadhi, and she thinking that he might fall down, and in the seated position used to go into samadhi. Then the master saw this and said, okay, now you don't stay here since your sleep is disturbed. You can go, and then she stopped staying there. So these are the wonderful reminiscences which Holy Mother's reminiscences, which we come to know because of the close association of Yoginma with her. So there are some very wonderful incidents which are of course there in the biography of Holy Mother. Swami Chetananandaji's The Divine Play, the life of Holy Mother, describes all these things collected from different sources, because the Gospel of Holy Mother is another source from where you can get a lot of biographical details which perhaps are not mentioned in the earlier lives. But now the bigger life, Mother and a Divine Play, all the available material in Bengali has been compiled and put together. So we get a very comprehensive life of Holy Mother taken from all these auxiliary books which are available, like the Gospel of Holy Mother. Of course, that is a very primary book, but this book was compiled much later. Swami Prabhananji, who is one of our vice presidents, has translated this from Mayar Katha. That is, Mayar Katha was published much earlier, but then it was translated and printed as the Gospel of Holy Mother, which combines all the reminiscences, the conversations, and also biographical details of the Holy Mother. So we will discuss it in the next class, and I'll just see if there are any questions. Yes. Now the first question is, Holy Mother says everything, husband, wife, even the body, is only illusory. These are all shackles of illusion. Could you please explain what is the meaning of illusion in this context? Meaning of illusion is anything that is temporary is an illusion. Anything that is not sustained, relationships are not sustained, body is not permanent. So anything that is not of a permanent nature except pure consciousness or Brahman is illusory. In that sense, it is Maya. Maya is something which people consider to be real, though it is not real. People consider it to be permanent, though it is not permanent. Real is not the right word. Real means anitya. See, the problem with English is when you say anitya, it is translated as unreal. But anitya is not unreal in that sense. It is not eternal. Nitya means eternal. Anitya means that which is not eternal. So that which is not everlasting is uneternal. So in that context, body is uneternal, husband is uneternal, not eternal. Obviously, Sri Ramakrishna passed into Mahasamadhi, and then the physical structure, the body, the Annamaya Kosha at least was not there. But as Sri Ramakrishna said, where have I gone? I've just gone from one room into another. That's a different idea, but to understand that, one should know that there is a subtle existence. Yoga says the faith in the subtle comes after a long struggle, after some experiences which show us that the subtle really exists. Till then, we think gross is everything. We don't see a person moving. We don't see the gross in front of us, then we get panicky. So that's why Holy Mother said, and in fact, when Sri Ramakrishna passed away, there is a incident when Holy Mother felt that like the vessels making noise, they just fall, and suddenly we realize that these noises which were there were all temporary. As long as the vessels hit each other, they were making noise, but once they collapse, everything is quiet. So that is how as Shakespeare said, everything is sound and fury. There's nothing else. All that we see, all the commotion around us, the egos, the small egos, the quarrels, we take things so seriously, and after all, it is all sound and fury. What else is there? So Shakespeare wrote it in his very poetic style, but Holy Mother says she literally saw it as if all the noise, all the vessels fall in a room from the cupboard, and it makes a lot of noise, and then we take it very seriously. But a time will come when everything will be calm. That is the meaning of illusion. Illusion in that sense that it is not permanent. All the noise, all the glory, all the fame, all the money, all the things which we possess is only for a time, and then everything goes away. It vanishes. Where does it vanish? It vanishes from where it came. So in that sense, it is an illusion. Now the next question is, how is it possible for a householder in the modern age with home, family, career to learn to work for others without any motive to understand Nishkam Karma or non-attachment? The first thing is, with family, career and all, everything is okay. To work without motive is something far off. Even if one can work with some good motive, that to begin with a little unselfishness, that would be the first step. To work without motive is something, the Nishkama Karma, it's just a term which to practice is very difficult. Nishkama Karma Yoga, there is non-attachment comes as a result of detachment, as a result of purity. So you can't be a householder with career and with ambitions, with attachment to the family, and then still want to do Nishkam Karma. It is like, as Jesus said, God and Mammon cannot go at the same time. If we want Nishkam Karma, then we cannot have we may have a family, but we cannot afford to be attached to our careers or to a family. We have to choose. If we choose to have a career, fine, that is a life of attachment. Then the troubles or the anxieties and the worries associated with that will come. We have to accept that. Nobody says that you have to be detached or do nishkama karma. If you do it, you get the benefits. If you don't do it, you get the problems associated with attachment. So attachment or detaching or doing sakama karma with ambition, with hopes, with attachment, with I, ego, and all those things is our choice. If we want to do those things with family, it's not the question of possible for a household in the modern age. Whichever age, even in the old age, there was attachment. There was attachment to family, family values, intense attachment to the children, to the grandchildren, and to the great grandchildren if they are still alive. People don't give up attachment so easily, but then they have that corresponding bondage and the consequences of the bondage. It's not the that bondage itself is does not cause problems, but the result of bondage, the result of the pain that is caused by bondage is the problem. It is not the bondage itself. That's why people seek freedom, because to avoid the sorrow or to avoid the pain that is associated. So non-attachment is a choice one has to make. So nishkama karma will come only when one is non-attached, when our spiritual goals are freedom, mukti. If we really want it, then the family, the career, they will not come in the way. In fact, those things will not be present in our thinking. We can't be calculative to have a family, career, and at the same time be non-attached and do nishkama karma. They don't go together. Then sakama karma will be there, and then we have to bear the consequences. That's all. It's as simple as that. We can't have both. Now, how can we attain patience and tolerance? Patience and tolerance comes as a result of a deep spiritual understanding of the facts of life, that things don't happen the way we want, even if we think it should happen this way or that way. So as I told you, I think I have given this example many times. We have a very, very old devotee who is more than 95, 97 years old. When she was asked what is the achievement or what spiritual life has taught her, though the answer was very, very simple, apparently very simple, then we think, oh, what is spiritual life? Will it just give this? But here the question that how to get patience and tolerance, it's an answer which comes after a long and mature understanding of the spiritual values. So that devotee said, and it's only recently, not very in the remote past, she said, what I learned from my life is that after I started practicing spirituality or taking to spiritual life, I understand one thing has become a conviction as days passed, and that I think is the result of all the peace and the wonderful joy or peace which I have in my life. And that is not to expect things to happen this way or that way. Now, this is a very simplistic way of telling, but it has a deep meaning. Patience and tolerance is nothing but this: not to expect anything to happen this way or that way. And if it doesn't happen, we get restless, or if it doesn't happen, we start worrying and getting anxious. So not to have that kind of inordinate attachment that things should happen only in a particular way, as the way I want it to happen. I may want certain things to happen my way, but if it doesn't happen, should I lose my sleep over it? That is the question. If one can develop that attitude, as this devotee said, she said, that is my greatest achievement. I don't know what other experiences of life would have made me happy, but at least this attitude has made my life full of joy and peace. So we have to believe that, because at this age, if somebody says that all my life, at least the later part of her life, when she took to spirituality, if she says that I don't now don't have that feeling that things should have happened this way or should happen this way or should not have happened that way, it's not a kind of fatalism that you just give, oh, let anything happen. No, everybody tries very hard, but then this patience and tolerance, if one has, then one can indefinitely wait, and that indefinite wait without expecting things to happen this way or that way itself gives a kind of everlasting joy and peace. That is the definition of peace. Okay, so I'll take your leave now. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Jai Ma.
Thank you, Swamiji. Namaste.
Namaste.